today. This is 4 out of 4 for our series with our partners at the Ohio Domestic Violence Network. And a big thank you just at the start to Rebecca, who helped set all of these up. Who helped set all of this up. Rebecca, thank you so much for your continued commitment to our campuses and for helping to bring us so many wonderful, talented people from the Ohio Domestic Violence Network to help our campuses with these issues. Before we get started with today's presentation, just a few housekeeping items for the group. We are recording the presentation, so if you yourself or anybody else on your campus would like a copy of it to review at a later time, you can just email me directly, and I'd be happy to send you the link once it pops up in the WebEx account. If you have your phones not already on mute or your web application, I ask that you do that just to prevent any background noise from being disruptive to the presentation or recorded, and send that to others. As well as we have had some issues in the past with people working on cell phones or tablets at the same time of the presentation and getting them too close to wherever you are hearing the audio from for the webinar today. And so I just ask if you are doing some of that work today or a laptop too on the side, that you just keep it away from your phone or the computer where you are listening to the webinar today to prevent any feedback or whatnot coming through. There is a chat room option in your application. That would be the best place to submit questions for our presenters today. And they will take questions at different points or at the end of the presentation, and we will review those things at that time. But please don't hesitate to submit the questions, as they come to you, so we will get to them at the appropriate times. Other than that, I have nothing else to share in terms of housekeeping, and you all don't want to listen to me anymore. So I'm going to turn it over to Ariella Brown from Central State University and Rebecca Klein from the Ohio Domestic Violence Network, and let them lead the presentation. So thank you both of you again, and I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you, Carrie. This is Ariella Brown from Central State University for having us today. I want to take a moment to also thank Rebecca Klein from the Ohio Domestic Violence Network for inviting Central State University to serve as a co-presenter on today's topic of a coordinated community response and strategic efforts. So good afternoon, everyone. My name again is Ariella Brown, and I serve as the Title IX coordinator here at Central State University. Since joining Central State University a year and a half ago, I have had the pleasure of working with many community partners to continue the joint efforts of building a successful, strategic, and ongoing coordinated community response team to prevent on prevention, to work on prevention and response efforts around sexual assault, dating and domestic violence, and stalking issues. I'm delighted to speak on our respective organizations' collaborative efforts over the years. So thank you.
And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rebecca Klein, and I'm the Prevention Programs Director for the Ohio Domestic Violence Network. I've been at ODVN, the network, for 16 years, and I've been working on the prevention side of the agency that entire time. Before that, I worked at a local domestic violence program in Cleveland in many advocacy roles, including doing community outreach. And in that capacity, I often helped with coordinated community response efforts. Currently, I administer 2 federal grants, one from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and one from the Office on Violence Against Women. And throughout my time at ODVN, our prevention work has really been focused on expanding partnerships to better coordinate prevention services at both state and local levels. So you could advance, thank you. So today, Ariella and I would like to share with you about how Central State University began to coordinate its community response to domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking on their campus.
We'd also like to share about how we've used campus climate data to inform prevention and response at Central State University, as well as some lessons learned from our experience.
And we're going to do this conversationally, sort of like an interview. So Ariel, you get to go first.
Thank you, Rebecca. Rebecca, tell us a little about the history of the collaboration that led to ODVN's working with Central State University.
Sure. Thank you, Ariella. So during the Strickland administration, a task force convened to develop guidelines for prevention and response to sexual, intimate partner violence, and stalking for Ohio campuses. Many of you probably know this document, and it was known as a Safer Campus. And then during the Obama administration, it was updated, which is why the picture here is of the second edition. Back in 2013, ODVN was funded by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to engage with 9 other grantees for a program called Delta Focus. Delta Focus is an acronym for Domestic Violence Prevention Enhancements and Leadership Through Alliances, focusing on outcomes, Communities United with States. Whoever comes up with these acronyms is way above my pay grade, just saying. With the convergence of the new Title IX recommendations and work that needed to be done to improve prevention and response to domestic and sexual violence, ODVN decided to use some of its Delta Focus funding for a project we called Creating Safer Ohio Campuses. During that project, we authored a climate survey. We worked with 3 Ohio campuses to implement the climate survey and to provide campus-specific reports, as well as to provide prevention and response assistance. Central State was one of the universities we partnered with during this pilot project. We asked Central State to convene a group that would guide the process, and they did. And that group grew from 4 in 2014 to a much larger group that received findings from the first campus climate survey in 2015. At that time, it was close to 20 people, and then again in 2017. In 2015, this group was the foundation for Central State's Coordinated Community Response Team. And just after we conducted the first campus climate survey with Central State University, the previous state governor created Changing Campus Culture, which had a similar emphasis on prevention and response. And really, that's how we got here today. So Ariella, would you share with us about who is at the CCR table at Central State and why these partners, both campus and community partners?
Rebecca, yes, that's actually a really great question. So Central State actually started with a small group of individuals from across our campus to develop a working group to address sexual assault and domestic violence. And it really just happened organically. We began collaborating with the Family Violence Prevention Center of Greene County and formed a memorandum of understanding. And at that time, we applied for the Office of Violence Against Women grant. Unfortunately, we did not receive funds the first time around, but we did not get discouraged. We, at that time, had written a VOCA grant that we had received to provide response services to victims of sexual assault. As the Obama administration began to emphasize the need for more response and support services, our efforts ramped up even more. We again applied for the OVW grant that would allow us to hire a full-time program coordinator to provide and coordinate prevention efforts on our campus, and we were granted that federal grant in the fall of 2017. As another year went past with significant personnel changes, there were still a number of committed staff to work to the work of prevention and response efforts around intimate partner violence. Once we were able to receive funding through the OVW grant, we began to understand the importance of a campus-wide and community effort of a CCRT. So even though there was a very small number of individuals from across campus, we had individuals from our Office of Retention program, counseling services, student affairs, our social work department, but there were representatives from each one of those entities that really understood the need that we needed to address some of these prevention and response efforts. So applying for the grant multiple times and eventually receiving those funds allowed us to really understand what it would take to undertake the coordinated community response and bring this all together. So we started to think about who else we needed to bring to the table and who we needed to consider for membership and why. One thing that I want to point out to everyone who's on the call today is when you are considering inviting individuals to your coordinated community response team, you should look at your strengths and then find out where your weaknesses are. So who's currently not at the table that should be? So for example, Title IX might be easily at the table because of the nature of what Title IX coordinators do. But also making sure that you are inviting your campus law enforcement or campus security entities such as your health services team, and even members from your administrative staff to attend meetings, because it's important from everyone from the top down to understand the efforts around bringing a coordinated community response to your campus. So how our coordinated community response has made a difference in terms of spreading messages for response and prevention efforts. We were able to expand our prevention and response efforts far and wide, including areas like our business department being trained on the effects of digital dating abuse. We have offered varied topics and guest speakers across varied expertise. So one thing that we always kept in mind was attracting a more diverse CCRT through offering trainings for our campus community. Trainings are really a great way to get people continuously engaged in this work. So currently, Central State University's team structure is made up of staff representation from the Office of the President to our facilities and food services staff. So some of our outside community partners include the Family Violence Prevention Center of Greene County, as well as the Greene County Prosecutor's Office in the Victim Witness Program. Our CCR team actually meets on a monthly basis. In addition to monthly coordinated community response team meetings, within the CCRT structure are committees that staff and faculty members are a part of to assist in achieving our prevention and response efforts. So with the grant, it allows us to break up the coordinated community response through various focus areas. One of those focus areas is comprehensive prevention, student conduct, law enforcement, and victim services. So we have made all of those subcommittees that there are staff and faculty and students that are on those subcommittees. Some of the ways that we spread our messages around campus is with the help of our Vice President of Student Affairs, who has been very supportive of these efforts. He ensures that our message is spreading across campus through varied media platforms. We work closely with our student peer advocates to ensure that we are reflective in our messages and our response, and to understand what the needs are of our students on our campus. To go back to trainings, we provide consistent trainings that are open to our entire campus community that is publicized campus-wide. So even if we have staff and faculty or campus members who may not sit on the coordinated community response team, we make sure that we invite everyone to the table who wants to be a part of the discussion and can receive training. So some of our recent trainings have included our digital dating abuse training that was very popular. We intend to bring Chelsea Getz of the Center for Family Safety and Healing from Columbus back to our campus. And thank you to Carrie Solar, because I actually attended a training through the Changing Campus Culture program that allowed me to invite Chelsea to come to our campus. Another training that we've held is the Trauma-Informed Care Training through Family Violence Prevention Center. We've also had the effects of sexual assault, a presentation that was spearheaded by the sexual response coordinator at the YWCA of Dayton. We also have in-house training conducted by our counseling services team, such as what it means to be an ally for the LGBTQ community. And we also have 80% of our coordinated community response team trained in mental health first aid. So the importance of community partnerships is really to increase in your resources. Another thing is when you are inviting external partners to the table, it's an opportunity for you to invite them onto your campus and for them to see what the campus is like and vice versa. With our increased level of partnerships, we're able to provide more programming for our campus community. Examples include our monthly sexual assault support group that's actually led by the Family Violence Prevention Center, weekly outside sexual assault counseling supportive services through Family Violence Prevention Center on campus, weekly outreach events in our cafeteria, and co-presenting the new playbook training with the Ohio Domestic Violence Network to students, staff, and faculty members on how to be an active bystander and breaking down biases and gender roles and how it affects our society as a whole.
So, Ariella, I'm going to divert a little bit here and just say that listening to you speak about the importance of creating a coordinated community response on your campus, it really speaks to that sexual assault and domestic violence are problems that demand a community response. Like there's no one department at Central State that could possibly make that difference without every other department or program participating as well.
Correct. It is definitely a community effort.
Mm-hmm. And this information is just really great. And I have another question for you. How has all of this work to engage partners at Central State University made use of campus climate data for improving response and prevention for relationship and sexual violence? So I guess, Carrie, you could advance the slide.
Thank you, Carrie. So Central State University's campus climate data has shown that students are receiving training around intimate partner violence issues, but data has also shown that based off of our 2015 and 2017 data results respectively, students still do not feel as if they could respond or act as an effective bystander. The data has also shown that students are more likely to report an incident that they were aware of. Data has also shown that students are more informed about campus resources than outside resources. So based off of these few key factors, it was important for us as a campus to think about who from the community we can strengthen our relationships with to ensure students become more familiar with outside resources. As well, it was important for us to not only host events around the months of April, which is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but to also offer trainings on a more frequent basis and offer trainings that can produce more effective and positive results that will empower our students to act effectively if they witness someone being sexually harassed or unfairly treated. Therefore, we have garnered resources through our OVW grant to provide culturally specific bystander intervention training that we are planning to roll out to our students this fall. We're also working with ODVN in co-facilitating the new playbook training. We have also worked with our faculty to incorporate trainings through our first year experience course to provide trainings to our incoming freshman students, alongside our orientations that include intimate partner violence prevention. Finally, we are piloting a one-year intimate partner violence online course training through Safe Colleges software with a select number of our freshmen, sophomore, junior, and senior students to see if the online course coupled with our yearly in-person trainings to our campus community will produce better results and create a more informed campus.
That's pretty awesome. I really love that you're committed to online trainings and not just online trainings, but to face-to-face, in-person trainings, because, you know, our bias is that online trainings only go so far. It's really the face-to-face contact that makes the difference, and I think coupling both is wonderful. So Ariella and Carrie, you could advance the slide. Tell us more about how Central State has been able to leverage additional resources through the Ohio Department of Higher Education funding, Victims of Crime Act funding, VOCA, and Office on Violence Against Women funding.
Sure. So as higher education institutions, we all understand the importance of budgets and how, or the lack thereof, in terms of prevention and response around these issues. So it was very important for us to ensure that we were leveraging all of our resources and really writing grants that will assist us in our prevention and response efforts. So one of the entities that we have worked with, or we have applied for, the Office of Violence Against Women grant. The Office of Violence Against Women actually came out of the Violence Against Women Act that the office was created in 1995 as a component of the United States Department of Justice to implement VAWA. So the grant that we have is a prevention-focused grant. The OVW actually administers 21 grant programs, but the prevention-focused grant that we have is a campus program grant, and the mission is to develop effective, culturally relevant, campus-based programming that builds upon strong campus community partnerships with the goals of strengthening services for victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking, and promoting multifaceted prevention strategies within the campus community. So as I stated earlier, Central State University obtained this 3-year, $300,000 grant at the end of the fall of 2017 through the Department of Justice's Office of Violence Against Women that will assist us in implementing a prevention program, and that has allowed us to employ a full-time program coordinator to oversee all prevention efforts for our campus. So that's just the prevention side of things. For the Victims of Crime Act, that's more of a response-focused grant, so we can't use our VOCA grant that we have for prevention programming. As most of you all know, VOCA was passed in 1984 that establishes an account known as the Crime Victims Fund. Funding is deposited annually in the fund from offenders convicted of federal crimes. The VOCA grant provides federal funding support for victim assistance, and for many of you who may not know this or are just entering higher education, this grant was not always available for higher educational institutions. It just became higher educational institutions that are nonprofit just became eligible to apply for VOCA funds under our former Ohio Attorney General and now Governor Mike DeWine. So we really want to thank our now Governor and former Ohio Attorney General for expanding the language to include higher educational institutions that are nonprofits, because he had such a focus on kids and youth. So that is greatly appreciated. So our VOCA grant allows us to respond to students who have been sexually assaulted and be able to respond to students' immediate needs. With the Ohio Department of Higher Education, we have utilized the ODHE's resources through the Changing Campus Culture Initiative, through attending trainings and seminars, which have really assisted many of our team members here on campus, as well as provided trainings for our student peer advocates who just recently attended the Generation 9 Summit this past November. The web resources and links have also been very helpful for our entire coordinated community response team.
So what you're saying, Ariella, is that having a coordinated community response has really helped you leverage additional resources, both in kind and in money.
Correct.
That's great. So, Carrie, you can turn it onto the next slide, and I'd like to ask you, Ariella, if you would share with us some of the lessons that Central State University staff and faculty have learned as a result of expanding your partnerships.
So some of our lessons learned, you will see there's a few photos that I posted here on the lessons learned slide, and I'll talk a little bit about those. As you all know, I am the Title IX coordinator here on our campus, and one of the valuable lessons that we learned around me serving in the capacity of the Title IX coordinator is, where do you house your Title IX coordinator? And I think this is a question that many campuses still struggle with, of where to actually house your Title IX coordinator. So when I first came on board, my office was actually located in the University Student Center. And if I don't know how many of you have visited our campus, but it is one of the newer buildings on our campus, and it is very state-of-the-art. It's an entire glass structure. So there is little to no privacy in terms of individuals who have their office located in the University Student Center. Now, this did allow me to have great interaction with our students, but it was also, my office was also located in a very high student trafficked area. So there was really no sense of privacy. And we want to ensure that a Title IX coordinator is housed in a confidential or a low trafficked area where students feel that safe that they can come and report without any biases. So I eventually relocated to the administration building and human resources, which is a lot less trafficked, and it also allows me to have easier access to our human resources director, who actually serves in the capacity as one of the deputy Title IX coordinators. Now, with that being said, our new Office of Violence Against Women Program Coordinator office is located in the Student Center, which allows her more visibility and interaction with our students, especially with her work around prevention efforts. We have learned that implementing successful violence prevention programs will result in higher reporting.
You know, that's interesting, Ariella, what you just said about higher reporting. We who work in the movement have said for years that higher reporting would result from increased awareness and increased prevention efforts. And it's interesting to see our theory testing positively on your campus. And hopefully, one day, we will see those numbers decline because of all of our efforts. So tell me what other lessons CSU has learned.
So you'll notice in the top corner, there's a photo of a young lady. There are two ladies in a radio station. So one of the ways that we have increased our communication efforts is, you know, how do you communicate with your campus community to spread the word on events? So one of our lessons learned was to utilize all of our campus resources. We have collaborated with our campus radio station, WCSU 88.9, to spread the word on events happening around campus, including valuable resources. So in that photo, you'll see this is actually one of our program partners from the Family Violence Prevention Center, who recorded a PSA on resources available to our students, and they also provided information of when they are here on our campus. We also utilize social media to communicate with our students. our Office Title IX Twitter account has been an invaluable tool for me on educating our campus community on the Title IX process, helpful resources, among many other things. And in the picture below, you will see these are members of our coordinated community response team. We have many individuals representing across campus in this photo. So individuals from Residence Life, some of our peer advocates are located in this photo. We have our general counsel, student conduct, and this was an event around a kickoff for informing our campus community of our prevention program that we have, that we're rolling out here on campus.
That's pretty awesome. Go ahead, keep going.
So those were just a few of our lessons learned. I hope you all do have some questions, because I'm sure that there's things that I definitely left out. So I look forward to speaking to you all further.
Yeah,
and here's
so now
our contact information.
Yeah, so please, we're at the end of our presentation, and it's your turn to ask questions.
I'm not seeing any questions come through. Ariel, can you talk a little bit more, about your internal process for some of these federal grants for any campuses that might be looking at that or thinking about taking that on? What were some maybe best practices or lessons learned, or, what do you truly feel made you successful? I know you've touched on some of this, but, anything you would want to expand in that area and being able to obtain both either the VOCA grants or the Violence Against Women Act or Violence Against Women grants?
Okay, so I think it's important for institutions to understand that there's a difference between prevention and response, and it is now our responsibility to ensure that we are providing prevention and response. With the latest VAWA language, we have to make sure that we are providing prevention efforts around dating, domestic violence, sexual assault, and there is funding available, so I strongly encourage anyone to apply for those, for that type of funding. You don't necessarily have to be a grant writer. I have little grant writing experience, but if you have an Office of Sponsored Programs within your institution, I would highly recommend going to sit down and speak with them, and they can definitely assist you through the process. One thing that I have found useful is setting up account through through the federal grants portal, and just making sure that you have alerts on a consistent basis so you can know when there's grants available that fit the needs of your campus.
Ariella, that's grants.gov, isn't it?
Yes, grants.gov.
Yeah. And there you can work on your application and submit your application. It's a little testy sometimes, but that is the location where you want to go to for all things related to federal grants.
Yes.
Ariella, you and I had talked earlier today about how important these grants have been in terms of professional development. I know for ODVN, with our Centers for Disease Control funding, we only have so much within that budget for professional development, but the OVW grant insists that grantees devote a huge chunk of that funding for professional development annually, and it's been tremendous to be able to use that to help staff and our partner organizations build their capacity for prevention and response. Do you want to say anything more about that?
Yes. So I think the component of being able to have these, if you are able to obtain the grant, it does allow you to travel and get the proper training to implement programming. And they also provide not just resources for trainings through conferences, but also online. There's immense online resources that are available in reference to professional development, and that has really not only helped me be able to spread the message to our coordinated community response team, but it has allowed our Vice President of Student Affairs, our presidential cabinet, obtain resources and trainings that will allow them to come back to our campus and know how to respond to certain situations. One other thing that I want to add is I think it's very important for you to utilize your campus climate survey, but then also to do a survey from various areas around your campus around prevention and response efforts. One thing that I noticed when I came on board, we had our VOCA grant, but one thing that was missing from that grant was being able to provide transportation services for some of our students who reside on campus who need to seek outside, additional outside resources. For many of you who are not aware of where Central State University is, we are actually located in a pretty rural area, and most of our students come from large metropolitan cities. And so they're coming into an area that's not full of a lot of resources, and if they don't have the transportation that they need, but they need services, we want to be able to provide some type of bus token for them, and the grant has allowed us to do that. But those are some of the things that you would have to assess on your campus so you can, when you are going back and writing your grant, you can add that in there, because some of these grants you have to be very specific in your language and say this is what we want to provide, and if you decide after you receive the funding that you don't want to provide that service or there's no longer a need for it, well, you won't be able to utilize that funding for something else.
Carrie, would you share our contact information?
Absolutely. I was just going to say, I don't think we're going to get any questions, but I appreciate both of you sharing your contact information should maybe someone want to contact you directly about an issue they're facing on their campus or some questions about their process.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you, Ariella, and thank you, Rebecca, for your time today and for sharing this information. Again, if anybody would like a copy of this webinar, as you maybe want to discuss some of this with your own teams on campus or about convening a team and getting off the ground and review it, maybe with an administrator or whatnot to support that work, you can just email me directly at ksolar@highered.ohio.gov. I'll be happy to send a copy of this webinar to you, and as well, I know Rebecca and Ariella can be of service and support in helping you if you may have questions along the way as you're improving what you've currently got or starting it from scratch. I think they would be invaluable resources to everybody. But thank you, both of you, for your time today, and thank you to all of you who joined us. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. It's Wednesday, right? Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.